Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange. Today I'm excited to bring you my most anticipated science fiction and fantasy for the beginning of 2020. I feel like I have a really good variety here, including books that are going to appeal to people who prefer my horror and other creepy content, so hopefully you keep watching. As usual, I like to mention that the release dates I'm going to be using are based off of Canada and of course are subject to change because I have no control over publishers. All that being said, let's get started. Now first, on January 28th, we have Prosper's Demon by KJ Parker. This is a fantasy novella that is about a man that works as an exorcist and gets hired to get a demon out of a man of science. However, this exorcist has a reputation for doing whatever he needs to do to get the job done, often at the expense of the person that he is trying to exorcise. So it sounds like it's brutal. While this is a fantasy story, it definitely has those elements of possession and exorcism that I love so much in horror, so I'm looking forward to that crossover. And it just sounds dark. I don't read tons of novellas, but this is definitely one that caught my attention, and I'm really hoping I get a chance to read and review it. Next, on February 25th, we have Broken Heavens by Daniel Kraus. This story follows a girl named Liz whose father was obsessed with aliens, and 2 years ago he said that he was kidnapped by aliens, and shortly after that he disappeared for good. Now Liz carries on his tradition of going into the woods and setting traps in order to catch aliens. However, now 2 years later, she is kind of past that. She is ready to give up on her father's fantasies, but when she goes to finally destroy the traps and move on with her life, she finds something or someone in the trap, and it's not exactly human. Now, I haven't actually read a lot of alien stories, and I'm very excited for this one. I'm hoping that's going to give me ET vibes, and it just sounds fantastic. So very much one I'm excited for. The author Daniel Kraus has written other books like The Shape of Water, and his stories are just dark and fantastical. This is technically listed as young adult, which isn't normally something I read a lot of, but I'm definitely hoping, especially with the author, that there's going to be crossover appeal. And again, that premise just sounds fantastic, and I need more alien stories in my life. Jumping to March 31st, we have Providence by Max Berry. This is set in a future where humans are on the losing end of a battle with aliens. However, they have just created a new class of ships called the Providence that are hopefully going to change things and turn things in the favor of humans. These ships are piloted by people that are basically prisoners on their ships because the entire ship's mission is controlled by the artificial intelligence that runs the ship. And I really love that premise. I am a huge sucker for the trope of a conscious ship, and this just sounds like a lot of fun. I know Max Berry has also written a book called Lexicon, which I've been meaning to read for years and sadly have not done yet, but his new book sounds right up my alley. It sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm very eager to check it out for myself. Now on April 14th, we have the book of Koli by M.R. Carey, which is the first book in a new trilogy. This of course is the same author that wrote things like The Girl with All the Gifts, which I have not read yet, I know. However, this book follows a young boy who is living in an isolated, protected village in a post-apocalyptic world. However, he ventures out, and in that world he finds crazy killer plants. And I'm very much intrigued by the premise. This book is definitely compared to Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, which at this time I have not yet read, but definitely want to. And yeah, I think the premise sounds really good, and this might be a really good place to start with checking out some of this author's work. Next, on April 21st, we have Repo Virtual by Corey J. White, and this is really unique. It's set in a city where there is this virtual overlay that makes the city look like a corporate paradise. However, once you get past that artificial layer, you realize that that is not the case. Instead, the city is full of poverty, and people are forced to beg, borrow, steal, hustle, etc. just to survive. The story specifically follows one man who works as a repo man and also a thief, and he is hired to do a very dicey job where he has to steal an object from a high-tech billionaire. However, the job gets more complicated when he realizes that the object that he has stolen is the world's first artificial intelligence. Now, if you don't know, artificial intelligence is basically one of my science fiction buzzwords. I cannot get enough of them. I'm very excited for this. The premise also kind of reminds me a bit of a science fiction version of Foundry Side, which definitely appeals to me there. And I just think that the world building itself sounds very much unique, and I just love to check out this one for myself. Then on May 5th, we have The Network Effect by Martha Wells, which is the first standalone full-length novel in the Murderbot series. This follows an artificial machine that is tasked with destruction. However, it has hacked its own programming because it would rather just simply binge watch TV all day. And this is such a relatable, fun take on an artificial intelligence story. I have read the first two novellas from Tor.com and really enjoyed them. If I had a criticism, it was that they were too short and I wanted more plot, which I think is exactly what I'm going to get from this novel. And I also suspect that they are going to design this so that it's going to be accessible to people that haven't read the novellas, which is why I feel comfortable to include it on this list. I think this is going to be a great place to jump into the series. The general synopsis is that Murderbot has to go and rescue her friends, and that just sounds like a lot of fun. So very much excited to check out that one as well. And last, jumping all the way to September 3rd, so very much subject to change, we have The Empire of Vampires by Kristoff. At this point, I haven't read anything by him, but the synopsis for his new book sounds quite fun. This is set in a world 27 years after humans have lost a battle against the vampires, and vampires now roam freely and basically control and rule the world. The story specifically follows one man named Gabriel who is tasked with protecting the realm, and he has just been accused of murdering the Vampire King. I think this premise sounds really unique. I don't read a lot of urban style fantasy, but this one is tasked as being an epic fantasy with a lot of good vampire lore, and it just sounds up my alley. So I'm very much excited to check it out. I haven't heard lots about it just because it is so far from the publication. I believe it's going to be adult. I might be mistaken. I definitely hope he goes with one of his adult works, and I'm just hoping it's as fun as it sounds. It's also mentioned to be illustrated, which really piques my interest because you don't see that a lot in novels meant for adults or even young adults. So we'll see how that goes, but tentatively very excited for that one as well. So that is it for this video. You know how it goes. Let me know of the books I mentioned, which ones are you most excited for me to read and review. I will definitely do my best to prioritize and try to get reviews out for these books as soon as I can get my hands on them. As well, there are so many other science fiction and fantasy books coming out. This was simply a selection of the books that are most up my alley, the books that are really catching my attention. So let me know down below which 2020 science fiction or fantasy release are you most excited for. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet subscribed, I read fantasy, science fiction, and horror. And if you are subscribed, remember to hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything from me. Give a thumbs up and drop a comment. Thank you. Okay, bye.